Hello, welcome back to another episode of our Megalomania and Unreal Engine. So yesterday we made a start of trying to make the kind of multiplayer functionality work cleaner, which kind of led on to trying to sort out the pawns and actors that will be used within the game. We got so far as creating the pawn for the players, for the player, and putting it on an appropriate slab or sector view. Now, I didn't get as much time to do some research and reading up on how this is all meant to fit together as I was intending, but I'm going to try and continue with the general process of basically getting it to work. So we have the what we just did just before the end of yesterday was we've put the slab inside the sector actor, and what happens there is it creates a child actor component, which when this actor is spawned, the child actor component will spawn that child actor, which can be referenced using this kind of child actor part, and then we can cast that to the appropriate actor type and call the render map on that. Even though render map is a really bad name and I really should change that, but I was thinking about it yesterday, and I'm not really sure what are the benefit of having the slab as a separate actor, since really all it's going to do is is render the sector kind of as the sector actor is. So I think I'm going to remove the sector actor and rename the slab so that we don't really have two. The slab's logic in terms of rendering really comes into the render map function anyway. And all that needs is this kind of sector type. I need to come up with a better name, I think, for the sector type. It's still better than the map, as it's called here. So we're going to change the render map function to render sector, and we'll take the map type, make that sector type. No references to map index, so we'll get rid of that. So the location, the location was kind of like a parent, not a parent function, a function that was called before the render sector, but because we're doing this before we create the slab now, that's not going to be too much of a problem. So we've still got the sector controller. We're just going to mark that. We don't want that. The sector actor. Yeah, so the sector actor really only has the code that we put in here yesterday. It's got sector type and location. So we're going to keep those, but otherwise remove it. So we should be able to replace those references with the slab that we will then rename anyway. Yep. So we don't need the set location function because it's all going to be done through the set or render sector function. We're going to change that to the sector type. Everything else about that function can remain the same. So we've got the sector that needs the location. So the location is pretty important to a sector because it will help us determine where it is, from which direction it connects to other sectors, and probably a lot of the other logic that the sector is going to need is going to be based on the location. So because this act has actually changed, it doesn't really know what's what, even though I've added the location back, but we should just be able to change it to and from the sector maybe. Yeah, there we go, and that worked. So it now knows it's that kind of. Forgot to recompile it after I fixed the error. So then our island sectors, that's something that we added yesterday anyway. So we should be able to change that. Return node. So we have that sector structure as well, which is a bit awkward, but it should be okay. Create sector. Sectors, where are we? Yeah, so we're in the level. So the game level blueprint. Sectors, so just update that. And one more. So we should be in, yeah, okay, similar state. So a sector is created with the appropriate location, and we're keeping an array of them in the level at the moment. I'm thinking that I've created the game state class that we didn't have before, and the game mode, based on the little documentation that I was able to read today. It's likely that the sector data would probably be better suited in the one of those two classes. I can never remember which is which, the game state or the game mode. I think maybe the state, but we'll deal with that again some other time once I've kind of figured out what should or shouldn't be there. So it also got the fact that the game mode contains this post login function that I believe is called on the server. Based on what I can see within here, we get it there, but if we run it with multiple players, it only states it's called on the server. So that would be some way of kind of sorting out particular players. So one issue that I had was that I couldn't correctly distinguish the two players. So I've only got the flags for one of the players at the moment. If I just find where I've put that in the UI, I think. Animations, yeah, so I've only got the green flags. I'm just gonna from the icons, that's one window. No, don't that one. Remember the quickest way to get to it is always this route, which is a bit weird. Somewhere in this set of sprites I should have the flag, so select that one. And so the flag's only built up from 4 sprites, we'll just take the red one. So we're going to call this building. We've got it. Oh. Flag red 1. And it should use the same name but change the 1 to a 2 wherever it's gone and put it. It doesn't look like it has. Oh, it has. Flag red 2. So we'll need to just neaten up the sprite just so the animation works. Yep. So it's 10 by 15. Let's do that to all of the. Keep them the same size, and then the animation should be fairly quick to put together. That's fine. 172. Okay. Back over here, we just create our flipbook. Take off the prefix to that, so it's just green flag and flag red. We'll do flag green on here. So our green flag waves for about 7 seconds at 6 frames per second. Red flag clearly doing more than that. So just make all these twice as long. 6. So one of the sprites is a bit off. So just have to make sure that my sprites are in the same order. Not really sure that they are in the right order anyway. Looks like 4 is the highest and 1 is the lowest. It doesn't matter about the order. Main thing is that it works at about the right speed, and one of the frames is a bit weird. So just have to hunt which frame that is. This one. It's nice enough, so it's just 1 too high. Just by editing that sprite, the flipbook's been updated and doesn't go wrong as well. So we've got that green flag. Now we've got the green and the red one, we can say that when the post login is called, actually put that in the middle there so we know that it occurs, we can cast our player controller to our particular specialized player controller and set the color accordingly. Don't have the colour in the player controller at the moment, so I think I may have put it in the player instance, but it's okay. So we're just going to put it as a name, because obviously the flags are all preset colours anyway. If we can see, that's a problem I had before, was that there's no way to know whether it's the first or the second or the third, so separating the colours is still going to be a bit awkward. So another thought that I had was that game mode. Okay, so we had in the instance where we defined our colour array. I don't know, I know I defined it yesterday, but I may have made some changes to it and lost it. Okay, never mind. Get mode. Yeah, I'm okay, that might work. See if that gives me two different numbers. Should get okay, so that makes more sense. That we can use. So we will create an array in our game mode. Again, I'm not sure if this is a long-term solution or just to kind of get things to work at the moment. But what we'll do is we'll have oops, that's not good. An array of flags. Currently we only have two values, and not an integer. So that's going to be a paper flip book, and that's be the green flag and the red flag. And then in our player controller, we can have our flag. Again, it will be our flipbook. So we want the colour. And since we can get the player number, let's reconnect them. We can use the player number to set the colour on our flag. Set flag, and from this one index would be the player number, flag would be that one. So that will be set on the, currently in this course it would be set on the player controller in the server, so that's not going to be 100%, but given that, we can go into the castle pawn, and it's got the paper flipbook component, so let's see if we can add paper flipbook component. And sprite set flipbook. Where are we? In the castle. hopefully this will be the right flag. So we'll do the casting first. We probably will want to set that player controller so we don't cast it multiple times, but that's okay. And set it on the flip book. So if we delete that flag now. So okay, in this case it's turned up red. That's good. It's kind of, or at least it's a start. The component added itself correctly. We need a better place to put it, or we need to find the relative transform to correctly position it over the castle, but that's the next problem. I think what we could probably do there is so that's 0, 0, but because the castle middle and we've got the shadow, if we try and position the center point on 0, 0 instead, kind of like where that hump is, the flag might line up a bit better. It's better. The other alternative is to give the flag a transform rather than moving the sprite. So to actually get the sprite, the flag for the second player, we need to make sure that it's replicated. So the player controller's flag needs to be replicated to the owner. Okay, that did not get over to the second player. It doesn't actually need to be replicated, yeah, to the owner blueprint. Let's maybe make it none, see if that makes any difference. Nope. Still no. Maybe it's not replicating soon enough. Again, it's that scenario where our events are happening too quick. That way you'll prove it anyway. No, it doesn't seem to have a flip. So, game mode. Ah, the red flag should be the second. Yes. So I think maybe the issue is it's dropping off the array index. Let's try that. Because it should be green and then red. We got the green and the red. Yeah, that's what it was. So the number of players is actually the total maximum players. So we need to take one away to get the right flag. It's a bit untidy, but it works. I didn't realise that we were getting the red flag. I just thought maybe I'll put them backwards. So let's just try and make sure that the replication stuff isn't over the top. Again, so the flag to the player controller is actually replicated on the owner only. Now that's technically true. Only the owner needs its flag to set it, but no, that should be fine. Only the owner needs it because only the owner adds it. Once it's added to the castle, then it should be possible to should be possible to see it from other players. See what we've got here. So we had owner and replicate, so we just set that back to the defaults. We can probably get rid of that delay. No, not quite. So there is definitely that kind of replication delay. We'll obviously have to make that better. Can't just have a random delay in there. So we just need to figure out what that offset is, and we can do that just by dropping our flag in. Make sure we pick the right place. That should be about right. So the offset is -4 and 13. And now the flag should appear in the middle. Yep. Okay, so they've at least got two different colours. That's a start. One issue that I realised was that the kind of concept to view a particular sector would be handled by possessing the pawn, but it's unlikely, probably very unlikely, that the pawn can be possessed by two people at once, which would be a problem when it comes to displaying a sector that another player is actually working on. I guess maybe the distinction will be that if the player owns the castle in a sector, then they can possess that sector, but if the player doesn't own a castle, then they can only possess the sector itself rather than the castle. But that means the sector would have to be a pawn, although I don't think they need to possess it really. Yeah, I haven't figured out how that was all going to work yet. But different coloured flags, that's a step forward. So I saw some examples where the UI elements were being added to the screen within the game instance instead of the game itself. Now which does make some sense because the game instance is on exists only on each player. Although the game instance is persistent for each one, so it seems a weird place to put it. But we have the game instance, which could do it, or we have the player controller, or we have the level one. So only a few places really it can go. At the moment we're dealing with it within the game, so we'll just stick with that. So So the event graph for the game currently gets our game instance, our current player controller, sets the camera. If it's authority, it creates the sectors and spawns the appropriate castle. So that's probably, again, not what we quite want to do. The game, the game mode, I think spawns the pawn, handle starting new player, and get default pawn class for controller. I think if we didn't create the pawn, let's just see, because it's normally created at 0, 0, I assume. Okay, so that's fine, it'd still be on screen if it was created at 0, 0. I think now nothing is created for each of them, because our player controller, or our game mode, one of them has a default pawn class. So let's see what happens now. Okay, so the flag gets created, but not the castle, which is odd because the castle should consist of the flag and the castle. I don't know why that happens. So our castle pawn static. So it says spawn actor failed because no class was specified. I'm not quite sure where that is though, unfortunately. It doesn't tell me where I've tried to call spawn actor. There's some collision there. Okay, so maybe the castle's not spawning because of collision issues. There's obviously checks for collision presets. So I don't really need any collision checking. At least not to start with. So just make sure that all the collision checks are off. Maybe that was it. There was one on the castle itself. Nope. No collision, that's probably what I want. Hello Nigel, well thank you. Thanks for asking, how are you? Okay, so hopefully collisions are off now. Still don't get a castle though. best as I can tell. So I am trying to recreate a classic 1991 game called Megalomania. If you've heard of it or seen it. It was available on the Amiga and the Atari, I think, or some of the various gaming machines or computers around that time. So I'm using the original graphics, which is why they're somewhat pixelated and old looking, to try and recreate the game. So this is the player select of the part of the game. Yeah, it was quite an old game. I remember playing it a little bit when I was younger. It's a real-time strategy, but obviously, given the age of it, it doesn't really compare a great deal to the kind of current strategy games available on the market now. So there's a level of simplicity in the kind of gameplay process, but there was still a fairly decent amount of strategy within the game, particularly for that era. So it's kind of like a favourite of mine. I thought they would make a good game to kind of yeah. So it was only 17 years after this one. Quite young then. A while. This is probably my let's have a quick look. Yeah, so this is the 22nd episode, effectively. Each episode I've done has probably been about at least an hour long. And I've obviously worked on it outside of streaming time as well. When I first started, I had not used Unreal Engine for anything, so I'm using it as kind of a way to learn the engine. Having a game that I kind of know fairly well, that's not overly complicated, but obviously quite strategic in its own way, seemed like a good game to base learning the engine on. It's proved to be difficult at times, or still is, particularly when it comes to multiplayer stuff where it doesn't do what I think that it would do. I guess is the answer. Partly because I haven't read the documentation properly, partly just because it's kind of new technology. I'm trying to do it all within the blueprints, so no actual coding. Just because it's a different and fun way of doing it, really. And again, having a game that's not kind of too complicated should mean that the blueprints don't get too bad. But yeah, I've spent quite a long time on it. I've gone back a few steps in terms of progress recently. What we're currently seeing here is not quite as much as I've had working in the past. I've got some of the game menu, or the kind of user interface of the game done and functional, but I'm just trying to tie it up better to how the game is supposed to work. Obviously struggling right now because nothing's spawning properly. So I get an error on my startup that says spawn actor failed because no class was specified. But based on everywhere that I can find spawn actor being used, I don't have anywhere that calls spawn actor with no class specified. Which is quite weird. Unless all of the files aren't saved. Maybe I'll just try that. Nope, still got that error. And we're still getting persistent level error here. Castle default scene route has to be movable if you'd like to move. I don't really want to move it. Because I spawn it at a given location, I don't think I move it. So the sector is created without any collision. Okay, maybe the game mode. So the game mode has, as I saw earlier, a starting new player or on spawn player controller. That's not what I wanted. There's an event or function for spawning. Spawn default play pawn at transform. Okay, so in this case, now we've added that, we don't get the flag back. But that's okay. I want to see if the HUD is where we're getting that spawn active failure. Yes, okay, good, that's what it was. So the having the HUD set as none was giving that non-actor warning. Overriding the don't really know what this is. Don't know where that came from. Overriding the spawn default pawn at transform function has stopped our castle from even trying to appear. We still only get the flag. We don't get the castle. So maybe I'll make it stationary, see if that... So the flag should be added just a little bit afterwards. So the actual sprite, building sprite, should be displayed straight away. Still says the castle needs to be movable, which I think, yeah, I didn't make it movable. Didn't really make any sense. Spawn collision handling, always spawn, ignore collision, so it's not collision based that's causing it to disappear. Maybe make it replicate, it's visible, it's not hidden in game. Probably don't want them all to be replicated, it worked before. I don't understand how or why the flag displays but the building doesn't. And I don't know why player 2's lost the land space either. Based on this, maybe if we, so the flag is there, that's the castle. Can't change its location because it will just say no anyway, because it's non-stationary. I don't have a flag. Where did I put the flag? The flag is definitely there. Oh, the default scene route is all over the place. Okay, there we go. That's why it's wrong. Okay, so I can work with that. It's putting it in some completely random place. I think it's possible to find kind of like player start locations, but because the start location depends on the sector that they're on, which provides location information, I'm not quite sure how to tie that up, but we can deal with that easily by changing the mode, overriding the spawn at transform. So that's the spawn transform that it says that we should use. Okay, yep, so that's fine. See if there's a way to spawn the pawn. No. It's fine, we'll do it this way around. Castle. Okay, good. So that now gives our castle back. I don't know when we try and move the pawn, so I'm just going to ignore that one. Even though it's complaining. It's a bit annoying because I said it's transform, but I don't change it. That at least stops it complaining. Okay, so okay. It's better. So that sets up the pawn correctly again. We've lost the slab in our second player. Don't know why. So I wonder if the set camera being done here is necessary, since we can do that in the player controller. Perhaps not. No, so we can't get a reference to the camera here, so that's definitely why we can't do that there. Can we get it in the game instance? Nope. Okay, so it definitely has to be done here. Oh, we're getting a player controller there, so we'll use the one that's passed in. That'll probably help. Put that back. Yeah, still no slab on our second player again. quite know when it went wrong. So the one advantage with doing the spawning of the actor here is that we'll have access to the sectors and the location that the player's on. But as I say, need to figure out how that's really going to work. I haven't quite got to that point yet. And at the moment they're both technically starting at the same place. So the game instance is where we've defined where the player should start, because the game instance is the only thing that that allows us to persist information across the levels. Theory being that the player would have picked, in certain cases, how much population they'd have, how much, where they would start, and the location. So in a single player game, the location would probably be used. The island would be used. The population would be used. In a multiplayer game, the population would probably be fed to them from the game mode scenario. Game mode blueprint even, so something to consider. So I know both players are given a HUD, and our current HUD is the default one. Might help to have our own. I think we looked at this before in terms of kind of displaying stuff, but game mode, game settings, nope, class defaults. So a layout on its own doesn't actually contain anything visible. What happened there? Weird lag and got all wrong. Our layout is just a position for everything, but what we can do is just to see if that's worked is modify our layout, maybe make this visible. Okay, so it's visible in both places, which means the HUD's creating that that widget. Okay, so both players will have the minimap. So I had this in the game before, so we're just going to have a look. Here we created the layout, then we created the map widget, and then we set the content on the layout. It's that one, and that one. So we get render map with 0 sectors. Let's find out. Yep, okay, so I thought that was the case. The game mode is only available on the on the server. The comment says as such anyway. So can't put the sectors in the mode. But I can probably put the sectors in the state, if that's the right place to put it. Somehow I need to get the sectors to the player. And it can't be in the game because there's no way to get the game in reference from within the HUD, at least. So if it was in the game, I'd have to call something on the HUD anyway. But we can get the state and we can get the instance. But I don't think we can get the game or the instance of the state for any of the players. Let's have another look. So we're going to try and put it in the state. To do that, to test that, we'll just tie up that, and then in the state we're going to put a name, a string, a value of some description. So state here. So again, another issue that I think I'll end up having is the replication delay. So we'll just account for that to start with. Don't know why I put it as a name. Needs to be a string. Okay, so that worked as expected. The value was replicated over. So the state can have the sectors. And we can replicate them over in the state. Or we can replicate them over in the level and then just call a function on the HUD. As I say, It's the issue really. This all these variables and data can be put in multiple different places. I just don't know where they should go. Where would be the right place to replicate that data over? Because I feel like the sector information, because that's based on the level, makes sense for it to be in the level as itself, because the level kind of is the island. So the sectors can be replicated, and one thing that we can do within the game is have this not here. I guess it was not here. Oh, that's the one we wanted. Yeah, so we can use the rep notify. The rep notify gives us a function call when the sectors have been replicated. We have the player controller here. We have the HUD. So we can add a function to create our minimap. We can pass in the sectors. Can't quite get them in there yet. And we also need to know what the biome is, which we have no idea of. So we can just use, we know the first one's going to be mud anyway. So yes, that needs to be a layout, which is that one. So the create map widget, the map widget has not been updated to handle our sector actors. We'll have to create another render map. Yeah, I think I tried to categorize them before and it just said no. It's a bit annoying. Categories would be useful. New variable is an array of sector actors, so we'll just call this sector A just to get that going. So what seems to be the problem here is that the client connects before, or sorry, after the sectors have been created. So there's no way to get them to the newly connected client from the game level. Or at least then the where do we split here? Let's try it a different way. Guess what I'm assuming here is that the sectors are already available on a remote client. So it's the new function. Again, it just doesn't do what I thought that it would do. I've got some errors, maybe that's why. Yeah, so the level is probably something that I haven't really got is any kind of flow of events. So I think so far as I've seen in other examples, there's kind of like a state machine that says you're at the various points of the game, and based on the change of state allows it to render or do different things. I'm thinking what's happened here is that I think it's the HUD isn't created yet. Set content in graph new function in HUD. Unless I'm just not setting that layout widget properly. Nope, same problem. Yeah, so the create map is called before the can't create a widget in the constructor. But the begin play of our HUD is called after the begin play of our, yeah, that kind of makes some sense. So the HUD is instance, but the map isn't ready. Okay. So definitely need to kind of understand the order of what's created and kind of how to get the sectors information around. So it goes wrong even on the server, really. But the bit that I'd like to try and avoid is having multiple copies of the sectors. I don't want the sectors to be stored within the game and had to be passed around all over the place. It'd be nice if, well, they'd still need to be passed around to certain places because only certain components need them, but they could access them from other blueprints more directly. Like the HUD can access the player controller, but the player controller shouldn't hold all the sectors. The game state could hold all the sectors, but that means the level shouldn't. But if the level doesn't, then what's the point in anywhere? What's the point in doing them there? Okay. The sector creation should be fairly generic in terms of the implementation. It doesn't matter whether it's in the it doesn't matter whether it's in the level or whether it's in the game state, really. Maybe we can't copy and paste the function. Output sectors, and then we've got an array of sectors, an array of sector structures. So we'll copy that. Island sectors, sector data. It doesn't look like the game mode can get the player controller. No, there we go. Get player controller. So we do that so that our player controller and instance are all ready, the correct type. And in here we can now use the game instance. Identify sector type. Where'd that come from? Sector data over there. Okay, so that works. So that's going to get our sectors again. This is in the game state class. Do need to replicate them around. Controller, HUD, cast. Quick macro so that we don't have to keep doing the caster HUD thing all over the place. Wonder if, yeah, the function library can't have macros in it. It's a bit of a shame, but nonetheless. So now we've got the HUD, we can call the new function. for want of a better name, with our sectors. Let's see how that pans out. Okay, render map with no sectors. So that's probably because we don't have an island name. We're getting that from the instance. Game instance, island name. Okay, we do have an island name. Game instance. Okay, so our instance looks fine. Don't know if that was before or after our begin create map. Game state. So we create sectors after the begin play game state, which is after the server says which level we're on. Okay, that's fine. Definitely have the right sectors on both the client and the server. Ah, sector C, isn't it? Yeah, we're completely using the wrong variable now, aren't we? Yeah, we've already recreated all this with using. So I think really we know we want to use the array of actors. So at least it says now we've got the right thing. Because of the way the for each works, we just have to recreate it again. So what we need from our sector is the location, and our sector actor should have a location property. There we go. And we can take that value into the appropriate places. And the loop body goes into, so we need another static function, or function library is right there. So one thing that I thought about improving in this case was that this basically runs iterations through all of the sectors, but if the sectors was actually a map, like I did create briefly yesterday, so in this case there would be a index 6 and an index 10, and there would be the two places. That would improve the efficiency and make this a lot simpler. Obviously for now I'll not do that. I'm just going to modify the first one. don't break it, but we do get location. Get rid of that one. Create sectors. Should be HUD. So identify sector actors used here is taking a set of an array of sector structures, whereas the identify sector here can't have that because it doesn't get it. I think what I actually need to do is on the actor remember the sector type. Which it has a property for. So going back to this was correct to be a set of structure. Because that's what we have at the point that this call is made. And then in this case we get the sector type and we call spawn actor sector. So all we need to do is say expose on spawn here and put that in there. That sorts that one out, and then over here so the sector type goes into the components part and the display part. I'm going to say we don't have a set of sector data, so let's just get rid of that. We don't have the controllers. I don't even think that's used. Used. They're not used. Sector type goes in there and there. So we don't need the identify calls. a moment. Now, let's see if that renders the minimap at all. No. So the new function 0 is being called too soon again. Create map widgets, a bit confused. Yeah, so we rename the variable. Okay, so some progress, it shows up on the client. Now that's because in here, we're doing that, calling the new function on an remote system. Guess really if we just join that up, then it should just work on both. Not quite. Probably because the HUD hasn't run its init properly on the server. Begin create map needs to come after HUD layout created, and on the server it's the one we're at. It's begin create map and HUD. It's hard to see. Server begin create map. Yeah, so I think the order's all wrong still. I need to figure out what kind of order all of these things is created in and how best to transfer the data around. But I think I'm going to stop for this evening. Next stream probably won't be... maybe Thursday. It's a busy week, so I may not actually get a chance until Sunday, I think. Thursday hopefully, if not then unfortunately it'll be Sunday before I can get back, but I am hoping that on Sunday I can dedicate a reasonable amount of time to this, try and get over this hump that we're on with kind of getting this set up again. I do think the use of the actors and the pawns and stuff is kind of in the right direction, but it's still kind of a matter of making sure that the data is propagated correctly, and I think that's important to kind of get right now rather than kind of progress with a kind of single player focus and find that the other players just don't work. So but I think there's an element of progress in getting the map back, even if the map's only on the client, and the castle and 2 different coloured flags, so there's some progress there. Hopefully more to come. So yeah, thanks for watching. Hope you come back again and if you haven't followed, please do. There's a lot more to go, but I think once we get over this hump of kind of making sure things are initialized correctly and set up, then we should be back to kind of the good progress of getting the kind of game controls working and then working on the actual game logic. So should pick up and become a bit more interesting moving forwards. So yeah, that's all for now. Good night for now.